In this video, I'm going to go over one of the homework problems that I didn't assign, but I could have, to give you an idea how to work on the programs that I did assign, okay? I'm going to work on problem 13, programming exercise 13 at the end of chapter 2 on planting grapevines, okay? So let me start. I'm going to pop up a notability or some such thing so we can do some planning. Okay, so I'll pop up notability here. We're going to plan. Okay, so again, I'm going to go with a new one here. Okay, so let's look at the problem. We have to start by reading the problem. Okay, and remember, we're looking for what our input's going to be, what processing we're going to do, and what the output is going to be. Okay, so for this one, reads as follows. I'm on page 106. A vineyard owner is planting several new rows of grapevines and needs to know how many grapevines to plant in each row. She's determined that after measuring the length of a future row, she can use the following formula to calculate the number of vines that she will fit in the row, along with the trellis and post assemblies that will be needed to be constructed at the end of each row. So here's the formula. So our processing is going to involve this formula. We've got the V, which is the number of vines. It's going to be equal to the length of the row in feet minus 2 times the amount of space in feet used by the end post assembly divided by S, which is the space between the vines in feet. Okay. So one can assume then that it's going to ask the user for the length of the row in feet, which is R. Okay. And you can make that a little more straight if you had more room. That's the length of the row in feet. It's going to ask us for the amount of space used by the end post assembly, which is E. Okay. And it's going to ask us for the space between the vines in feet. And that's an S. Okay. So now we have that we're going to calculate this V based on the R, which we have, the E, which we have, and the S, which we have. Okay. The output then is going to be the V. Okay. So we can go and look at taking this. Okay. We're going to divide it up like this. Again, it's probably overkill, but I want to make sure I've got it correct. So here's my numerator, and then a slash, and here's my denominator. So my numerator is going to have the R minus 2 times E. Okay. Now you can put parentheses around the 2 times E if you want, but you don't need to. That's going to happen first anyway. Then over here, we just have S. Okay. So the basic outline then for our program, okay, if we want to do a quick and dirty flow chart here, we're going to ask, and I'm going to combine these together for brevity, but you really would have them separately. Ask for R, ask for E, ask for S. We're then going to calculate V equals, we've got the R minus 2E over S, and then we're going to output V. That's it. Okay, we're going to make it as reasonable as possible. Okay, make it look like a real program. Okay, we need to keep in mind that the R, the E, and the S, what type do they need to be? Okay, and in this case, we may not get whole numbers. A foot's a pretty big thing. So let's go ahead and say that all these are floats. Okay, so we're going to ask the user, then we're going to do some floats. Okay, so that should take care of the basic idea, and it's worth doing that so you kind of know what's going on. Okay, so let me get rid of that. Okay, and go back to here. I can now share my idle. Okay, so here we're at idle. Again, we have to do a new file if we want to have something that we're going to be able to turn in. Okay, so over here I can start. Again, I want first my comment block. Okay, my comment block. I didn't see that as typing, so I didn't type right, didn't have a typo. Okay, so this comment block, it should have your name, program name, all the stuff that's in the notes from before. Okay, I'm going to skip it for now for the sake of time. Okay, except that I will say that this is, the program is called planting grapevines. Okay, it's not a bad idea to have a list of variables Okay. So we're going to have the R, which remember again is the length of the row in feet. Okay. We're going to have the E, which is the amount of space basically the end assembly length in feet. Okay. And then we have the S, which is going to be the space between the vines in feet. We're all in feet. Okay. So to start here, we're going to ask user input. Oh, then we're going to get the output. It's going to be the V, which is going to be the number of grapevines that fit in the row. Okay. So now that we have all of our comments ready, we're going to break it into sections. Okay, so we're going to ask the user for input first. Okay, we're going to follow that by calculate the V and follow that by output results. Okay, or if you wanted to say it, you could have input here, you could have processing here, you could have output. That would work as well, however you want to say it. Okay, so let's ask the user for input. Okay, so again, there are two ways to do it. If we want to do it the two-row method, which is perfectly okay. Remember, I can't put any spaces or it's not going to work. Okay, so I can say here that R, and again, you typically don't want to use a capital R for a variable name, but in this case, it's part of the formula. I'm going to go with it. If you want to use a small r, that's okay too. But I want to make my program look as much like the formula as possible. Okay. So I'm going to say R is going to be equal to input, enter the length of the row in feet. Okay, then doing it that way, I'm going to say R is equal to int, sorry, make it a float of R. Okay. Or I could just go back and put float here and then put the whole thing in parentheses. And that should work as well. Okay. And again, if you're concerned that you've got this right, we can always just print R and make sure that this works. Okay, so I can come up here, I can do my file, I can do my save as. And this one would be chapter 2, problem 13.py. Okay, save with the documents folder, that's fine. Okay, I can now run this and enter the row in feet. If I say 12.5, it prints out 12.5. So I'm fairly certain life's okay. Okay. One thing that you may want to do if you have some test code, often you don't want it in your final product. So I'll put in something like this. I'll put in some mark so I know that when I run it, that I can later search for that and be able to get rid of it. Okay. So for right now, I can wipe it out. Or you can put a comment there if you think you may need it later. Okay. So I'm also, and I don't put a comment here because the comment would say ask the user for the length of the row in feet. My prompt says that, so I don't really need that. It's self-documenting in that sense. Okay. So again, my E is equal to float, input, enter the assembly. It's more efficient or more put in better terms, the end assembly length in feet. Okay. And then finally, S is going to be equal to float input. No, you can cut and paste this if it makes more sense to you. Enter the space between vines in feet. Okay, those three are exactly the same. And now again, I can print them all. R, E, S. And this is going to be a test print. So let me go ahead and put in something, doesn't matter what, use the same thing. I've used two different things, but you get the idea. So let's run this. Okay. Got 12.5 for this. Let's say this is 2.3 for that. And the space between lines is 1.5. Okay. So that returned what we wanted. That's again my marker to get rid of it later. Come over here and get rid of it. Okay, or make it a comment either way. That's all the input we need. We can now come in here and calculate V. Since R is a float and E is a float and S is a float, V is going to be a float. So we don't have to worry about that. Okay. And then looking back on the notes that I took, and I can't share them at the same time, but we'll get it here. V is going to be equal to R minus 2 times E divided by S. You don't need the parentheses here, actually, but you can put them in there, that's fine. And you can put more in here if this makes you happy. That's fine too, okay? And this should work. We have that. So we can just, to do a quick and dirty here, let's print V there, okay? And you want to calculate this for some actual numbers, okay? So if we make R, so let's make a number that's going to be easy. So if we make an R to be a 5, okay, so I can just put a test case in here. If R is equal to 5, E is equal to 1, and S is equal to 1, for example, okay, that should give us 3, right? It's going to be the 2 times 1 is 2, the 5 minus 2 is 3, the 3 over 1 is going to be 3. So it should give us 3.0, okay? So let's try this, see if it works, then we'll know. So we run the module. So I'm going to enter the length of R, or the length R is going to be 5.0. The E is going to be 1.0. And the S is going to be 1.0. Okay. This gives us 3.0. So I feel pretty good that that's okay. Okay. To test further, you want to make sure that 0 is not going to cause any trouble. And it is. If S is 0, we've got trouble. We don't know how to fix that yet, but just keep in mind, we're going to have to worry about that later. But for now, looks like it's working. You could try a few more examples. Excel's an excellent way to do some examples. Okay. So what I could do here with Excel, if I pop up Excel seems to be stuck. There's Excel. Okay. So again, I can take this formula here and I can just label this R, E, S, and V. And then I put in a 5, 1, 1. And here I can just say it's going to equal the R column minus the S column. No, R column, that's wrong. Okay, minus 2 times the E column divided by that. That gives us a 3 as well. Okay, and then once you've done that, you can change this. What if it's 10 and 2.5 and 1.3? Okay, that's what it should be. So I can come back over here. Hopefully you can see all this on the screen at the same time. I'll run it one more time. Okay, and I can click over there and say, okay, I want this to be a 10 and a 2.5 and a 1.3. It should give me the same number, and it does. Okay, so that's just another test. So I feel pretty good about that. Are we done? Not quite. Okay. So this all looks okay, except this print. Print is not really that great. Okay. So we're going to change this print to something like the number of grapevines that will fit in this row is that. Okay. Let's run this again. So we've got 50-foot rows. It's going to take 4.2 feet at the end. It's going to take 2.8 between. Okay. So that gets us that we can get 14 grapevines, 14.85, and a bunch of numbers. Okay. We'll eventually be able to format those numbers better and do stuff like that. But for right now, that's going to give us a good idea. Okay. Or if you're thinking to yourself, and you may be thinking to yourself, I can't have a fractional grapevine. Okay. So I can go back over to here and I could put an int around all of that. Okay. When I do that and run the same thing, and that is in the way as it usually is, at least for me. So if I do again the 50, the 4.2, and the 2.8, it gives me just a 14. Okay, it's just going to lop that off, which is which something you can do. Okay. So from there, all you would need to do is save that Python, save the .py file again, make sure or know where it's saved at. Again, it's going to tell you at the top of the screen where it's at, and then go to Moodle and upload that .py file. Okay. If you have any questions, let me know. I'm going to put this video up in Moodle, so you'll see the link there. It's going to go to my YouTube channel. Note that I have a playlist for the Python programming class. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel. It benefits me in no way, so I don't care, except it's more convenient for you. But you can look there and you can look at that playlist, and you'll have all the videos that I do for this class should be there. If it's not there, let me know and I can make sure I put it there. Okay. Okay, so if you have questions, let me know. If not, I will see you in class tomorrow.